Clark Still is KOF's most prolific grappler, the only one in fact to appear in every single entry of the series, Maximum Impact included. As such, he defines the archetype in the context of the KOF series. Unlike archetype-defining grapplers from other series, such as Zangief and Potemkin, Clark doesn't fit into the often synonymous archetype of large body, and thus he doesn't suffer from a larger-than-normal hurt box or impaired movement, but he also doesn't have specific tools to deal with what is often a grappler's worst enemy, fireballs. In KOF 15, Clark's game plan is both straightforward and comprehensive. Land a command grab, or a combo, into Flashing Elbow, and then enforce a safe jump mix-up, wherein the opponent is forced to make a correct guess to escape. If they do not guess correctly, they will be punished and forced to guess again. He has many tools dedicated to this game plan, which is both one of his biggest strengths and limitations. With no true reversal or anti-fireball tools, Clark is forced to win neutral the old-fashioned way in order to enact this game plan. Far A is a standard jab. It is one of Clark's fastest normals and is special cancelable, but it cannot hit most characters crouching. It will hit large characters, such as Antonov, King of Dinosaurs, and Maxima. Far B is a bit stubby, but provides good advantage on contact. On hit, it can be linked into sweep, even if it connects at max range. Far C reaches quite far, and recovers quickly considering it has this much range. It covers hop height, but it can be crouched under except by large characters. It can't be special cancelled, but it can be super cancelled. He shares this normal with Ralph, although Clark's version is slightly slower in exchange for better frame advantage on contact. Far D also whiffs against crouches, except at close range, but it hits high enough to be a good anti-air against jumps. It shares cancel properties with Far C. Close A is a standard close jab. It chains into other light normals, but not itself due to the universal auto combo string. It can be special cancelled. Close B is similar to Close A, but it deals more damage and does chain into itself. It is used in Clark's max damage light confirms. Close C is a 2-hit, close heavy normal. It is fast enough to be linked from all of Clark's light normals apart from Crouch B, allowing it to be used in point-blank, 4-frame punishes. Despite this, using it in confirms is difficult because more than one light normal will put the opponent out of range. The first hit can be special cancelled, but the second hit can only be super cancelled. Close D is an overhead that is disadvantageous on contact, but evades lows during its animation. It cannot be cancelled into anything, so it isn't very rewarding, but for what it's worth, it is faster than Clark's overhead command normal. Crouch A is a standard crouch jab, and tied with Far A for Clark's fastest normal. It chains into itself and other light normals, and can be special cancelled. Crouch B is a standard crouching low. It can be special cancelled, and chains into other light normals, but not itself. Crouch C is a decent ground poke, with good range, speed, and recovery. It can be special cancelled, but it doesn't have much vertical reach. Crouch D is an excellent sweep. It has great speed and range, is safe on block, and it can be special cancelled. Jump A is fast and covers a decent downward angle. It doesn't hit most characters on the way up if they are crouching, so it can only be used as an instant overhead against large characters. Jump B is fast with good reach, making it a decent anti-air, if a bit unrewarding by itself. It cannot hit most characters if they are crouching, but it does hit large characters. Jump C is also a good air-to-air, but it is slightly slower than Jump B. It cannot hit any characters if they are crouching, even large ones. Jump D is yet another good air-to-air, and probably his strongest. It is tied in speed with Jump A, and is Clark's preferred normal for jump-in combos, as it allows Crouch C to be linked at close range. CD is a fairly standard blowback. Despite its animation being a high kick like Far D, it does hit crouching opponents. This animation makes it passable as an anti-air, although it's a bit slow to be used reactively. This is more relevant for his Shatter Strike, which gets decent combos on an anti-air connect, even without spending meter. Jump CD is the standard KOF guard button. It is undeniably Clark's best normal to use when approaching the opponent from the air, due to most of Clark's air normals being best used as air-to-airs. "6B, Stomping, is an overhead command normal. It is slow, has mediocre range, and is only super cancelable when used by itself. When cancelled into from another normal, it loses its overhead property, and is worse on block, but it can now be special cancelled. When cancelled into from a long-range crouch C, it will whiff. 6AB, Step, is a command dash that makes Clark hop forward, evading low attacks while remaining close to the ground. It can be used to stay close to the opponent after a block string or a sweep, but it can be punished if cancelled into from any blocked normal except CD. Interestingly, it can be cancelled into from 6B as though it were a special move. To me, it seems gimmicky to cancel into it in any situation that isn't a sweep on hit or a CD on hit or block. Lastly, Clark has an air throw, but it doesn't seem like anything special. Just another air-to-air, in case you didn't think he had enough already. Half Circle Forward Kick, Super Argentine Backbreaker, is Clark's standard command grab. The D version is a true one-frame grab, the centerpiece of any grappler's moveset. The B version is considerably slower, starting up in 15 frames, but it has full body armor and invincibility to throws for the entirety of this period. Both normal versions can be followed up with Quarter Circle Forward Punch, Flashing Elbow, to do a bit of extra damage and extend the knockdown period, allowing Clark to perform a safe jump afterward. The EX version of Backbreaker is also a one-frame grab, and has longer range than the D version. It cannot be followed up with Flashing Elbow, but it instead bounces the opponent off the floor with juggle potential. As a last note, the D version can be fairly safely whiffed at a long distance to build meter. Half Circle Forward Punch, Mount Tackle, is a dashing attack that does no damage on hit or block, but instead has 3 follow-ups that you can choose between depending on whether you want to prioritize damage or screen position. 22C, Sleeper DDT, is the usual go-to option since it can be followed up with Flashing Elbow. 22A, Clark Lift, does more damage than DDT, but throws the opponent almost a full screen away. 22 Kick, Rolling Death Cradle, does the most damage of the tackle follow-ups, but also throws the opponent a full screen away, and travels backwards quite far. So far, in fact, that if you use it from round start position, the opponent will be put in the corner. RDC is preferred if you want to do the most damage without spending any meter, but DDT can potentially lead to more damage since Flashing Elbow can be super cancelled. Worth noting that Flashing Elbow is considered an extension of whichever special move it follows, and so if you use the EX version of that move, then Flashing Elbow cannot be super cancelled. The A version of Tackle travels nearly full screen, and comes out fast enough to combo from light normals. The C version is slightly slower to start up, only comboing from heavy normals, but it will travel the entire screen. The EX version is faster than the A version, but only reaches right in front of Clark. More importantly, it will land in just about any situation against an airborne or juggled opponent, including after sweep, after jump CD, after any air-to-air, after the A version of Gatling attack, after either normal version of Vulcan Punch. Lastly, all versions of Tackle are very unsafe on block. Quarter Circle Back Punch Gatling attack is a short advancing attack, and a staple of Clark's combos. The A version is Clark's fastest meterless non-grab special, and is his most practical cancel in light confirms. The A version of Tackle does a bit more damage than A Gatling, but its half circle input makes it easy to drop in confirms. As mentioned before, A Gatling juggles into EX Tackle, but nothing else. The C version of Gatling is slower, and only combos from heavy normals, but it has superior juggle potential. It juggles into Sweep or A Gatling. Both of these juggles can be ended with EX Tackle, but if you don't have or don't want to spend the meter, Sweep is arguably better, since you can cancel it into Step for better frame advantage. C Gatling can also be followed up with Quarter Circle Forward Punch Death Leg Driver, which does slightly more damage than the meterless juggles, but has no options to extend the combo further, and leads to a worse knockdown situation. The A version throws the opponent forward, and the C version throws them backward. EX Gatling has slightly less range than A Gatling, but it's still fast enough to combo from light normals. It also has even more juggle potential than C Gatling, allowing you to juggle into A Tackle. EX Gatling also has the Death Leg Driver follow-up, but it does less damage than Tackle, even if you do DDT into Flashing Elbow, so there's seemingly no reason to ever use it. DP Kick Frankensteiner is a command grab with slow startup, but is fully invincible during the entire startup period. It has similar range to Backbreaker, and can also be followed up with Flashing Elbow. It's not a true reversal since it won't hit airborne enemies, but it works against grounded attacks about as well as B Backbreaker. It's arguably slightly worse than B Backbreaker in this situation though, since it does slightly less damage. B and D Frankensteiner both deal the same amount of damage and have the same range, the only difference being that the D version is noticeably slower. This also means that the invincibility lasts longer, which might be what you want. EX Frankensteiner has the same startup as the B version, and does a bit more damage. It's at this point that I'm going to note that all of Clock's command grabs, as well as his tackle follow-ups, swap sides with the opponent. This makes it difficult for Clark to keep his opponent in the corner, as any opening will usually lead to a grab or a combo into tackle. Most grapplers in most games have a hard time pushing the opponent to the corner due to their movement speed usually being slower than average. Clark obviously doesn't have this weakness, so the fact that he has a different mechanical limitation preventing him from taking full advantage of the corner seems fair, as it preserves a normal shortcoming of the archetype. DP Punch Vulcan Punch is an upward punching attack that hits 4 times. It might look like it could be a decent anti-air given its animation, but it's quite poor in this regard. It trades unfavorably against jump normals, because its damage is split between its 4 hits, and even if it doesn't trade, you usually only get 1 or 2 hits anyway. The A and C versions seem to be identical, and for combo purposes it seems strictly inferior to A Gatling, which is faster, has better range, does more damage, and leads to the same juggles. EX Vulcan Punch leaves a grounded opponent standing with Clark at enough frame advantage to link B or EX Backbreaker. I experimented with several combo options using EX Vulcan, but I couldn't find any combos that made it worth spending the meter on it. Compare the damage. The one thing Vulcan Punch has going for it is that it is 0 on block. Curiously, you can cancel Far D into the normal versions of Vulcan Punch, but not the EX version. After landing this, Clark isn't close enough to land an EX tackle unless the opponent is in the corner, like with a lot of combos into Vulcan. The only option mid-screen is to super cancel into running 3, but even that isn't 100% reliable. Speaking of supers, Double Half Circle Back Punch Ultra Argentine Backbreaker is a standard command grab super. The damage it does is pretty low, all things considered. Doing the level 1 version raw does less damage than EX Backbreaker into A Gatling, and from there you have the option of spending the full bar on EX Tackle to do similar or even more damage than the level 2 version raw. Despite the fact that it's an inefficient use of meter, it's very accessible in combos, since it can be cancelled into from Flashing Elbow, which all of Clark's command grabs and almost all of his combos will end in. Because of this, the only time that Ultra Backbreaker should really be used is if you need a little bit of extra damage to finish the round. It's generally better to spend a bit of extra meter to confirm the kill than it is to preserve the meter and count on finding another opening. As a last note, Clark can't advanced cancel or climax cancel this super. Double half circle forward kick, running 3, is a running command grab super with startup time that is too slow to make it landable in neutral. It also has no startup invincibility. Its only use is in the fact that it can be cancelled, unlike Ultra Backbreaker, which means that it is used in some of Clark's absolute max damage combos. For what it's worth, the level 2 version does start up considerably faster, but it's still slow enough to be jumped on reaction to the Super Flash. Clark's Climax, Ultra Clark Buster, is a jumping grab super with a slow startup, but it has a long active window and invincibility during its startup and active time. Being a Climax super, it is mostly relegated to meter dumping, but the traits I just mentioned mean that on paper it works as a reversal. Its vertical reach isn't far enough to catch jumps though. Having said that, spending 3 bars reactively or predictively is usually an unthinkably big commitment, so this isn't something that should be done at all often. Since Clark's supers are a generally inefficient way to spend meter, Clark's best place in a team seems to be on point. This has its upsides and downsides. The upsides obviously include that Clark can optimally operate with a small meter budget, but the downsides are mostly matchup related. Many characters with strong fireball zoning, such as Athena and King, are generally played on point, and those aren't the easiest matchups for a grappler with no anti-fireball tools. Moving Clark back to mid gives him access to some quick max combo routes into Climax for over 500 damage, which in turn means that he doesn't have to find as many openings in hard matchups. Of course, holding meter for this purpose means not spending it on Clark's highly usable EX moves. There aren't that many more options created by the extra max mode time granted by putting him on anchor, so I think it's reasonable to say that it'd be better to put someone else in that position. To summarize, I think Clark's best position is on point, but he can be played on mid if it would work better against your opponent's team. When KOF 15 came out, I decided I'd try to dedicate more time to labbing it, which is something I don't normally do since I have a bad habit of dividing my time between too many different games and too many different genres. I started playing Clark a couple weeks ago, and figured him out pretty quickly since his game plan is so straightforward. When I decided I'd take notes, I thought I'd format them in a way similar to Befehl, since I find that I and many others are quite receptive to it. As such, this isn't really a guide so much as a write-up for the character. I know I don't have much of an audience right now, but if this is well received, I'll try and find time to do a similar write-up for other characters.